In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war, and the shadows of broken tales. The galaxy burns under the Emperor's fading light, a candle flickering against the howling gale of the warp. Stars bleed, worlds shatter, ancient horrors, Xenos, daemons, and machines older than time claw at the edges of reality, each promising oblivion in their own tongue. Yet, beneath this endless carnage, deeper wounds fester, not in flesh or steel, but in the sacred lore itself. I am Malachar Voss, archivist of the Ordo Chronicus, keeper of forbidden scrolls and vox logs sealed in adamantium vaults. Today I unveil the 5 greatest afflictions plaguing Warhammer 40,000, narrative scars so deep they threaten to unravel the mythos of our holy Imperium. These are not mere oversights, but foundational pillars, erected when the galaxy was but a backdrop for tabletop slaughter, now groaning under the weight of a living saga. From alien swarms that should have devoured all, to demigods trapped in narrative limbo, these are the cancers of our lore. Listen, faithful pilgrim, and despair. For in understanding these flaws, we glimpse the fragility of our tales and the doom that awaits if they remain unhealed. The saga of Warhammer 40,000 spans decades, centuries in the reckoning of scribes like me. From the anarchic birth of Rogue Trader in the 1980s to the sprawling epics of the Horus Heresy, it has grown into a galaxy-spanning narrative woven with threads of terror and tragedy. The Imperium, a trillion souls bound by faith and fire, wages war against chaos' insidious whispers, the Necrons' undying legions, and the Tyranids' ravenous swarms. Yet, some threads dangle loose, plot lines left unresolved for so long they risk snapping under scrutiny. These are not mere quibbles, but foundational threats to immersion, contradictions born in an era when the lore was a static canvas for dice and miniatures, not a dynamic chronicle demanding progression. The galaxy of M41 was once a frozen tableau, the Emperor enthroned in eternal agony, Primarchs lost to myth, Xenos lurking as distant omens. But the 8th edition's gathering storm shook that stasis. Roboute Guillimon's resurrection, the great rifts cataclysmic, the Lion's return from Caliban's shadows. These seismic shifts drew millions to the fold, yet they expose a core dilemma. The lore must evolve to captivate, but resolution risks toppling the grimdark's delicate balance.
Why this reluctance to advance? The answer lies in 40k's genesis. Unlike tales born from novels or films, think Tolkien's Middle-earth spawning games, Warhammer inverted the formula. The tabletop came first, lore its handmaiden, crafted to flavor battles, not drive serialized epics. Early codexes painted broad strokes, orcs as fungal brutes locked in eternal awe, Eldar haunted by Slamesh's birth, the Emperor a corpse god on a crumbling throne. But Black Library's novels, Dan Abnett's Eisenhorn, the Siege of Terra's brutal finale, gave depth to this skeleton, birthing a hunger for character arcs and consequences. The 8th edition answered with Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade sundering Cadia, the Cicatrix Maledictum splitting the galaxy in twain. Yet progress is shackled. The tabletop demands equilibrium. No faction can dominate, lest sales falter. Your Dude's philosophy lets players craft their own stories, clashing with a linear canon. Fans decry plot armor for Space Marines or power-scaling nonsense, a custodian felling hordes in one novel, then struggling against a single orc in another. Lore Locke whispers in the shadows. Advancing one thread, like the Emperor's awakening, risks invalidating others. Without resolution, the narrative risks stagnation, turning vibrant mythos into gray sludge. But resolve too much, and the grimdark crumbles. Victory betrays futility. Let us dissect these 5 wounds, starting with the ravenous void that hungers for all. A chittering roar, like a tyrannid swarm descending, layered with the wet snap of claws. The tyrannid problem. The Tyranids are the galaxy's ultimate nightmare, a shadow fleet blotting out the stars, a hive mind of trillions driven by hunger's unyielding pulse. From high fleet behemoths rampage through Ultramar, where chitinous gaunts overwhelmed ultramarine bastions, to Leviathan spore clouds choking Baal's skies, they embody entropy incarnate. Carnifexes thunder like living siege engines. Lictors stalk with chameleonic guile. Biotitans loom as gods of flesh and acid. Yet the lore's gravest sin is its insistence that every incursion, behemoth, kraken, leviathan, is but a scouting tendril, a mere herald of the true swarm lurking beyond the galactic rim. This, etched in codexes and echoed in devastation of Baal, paints a doom so absolute it renders all resistance futile. Picture it. Marnus Calgar's desperate stand on Macragge, veterans torn asunder by Tyrannofex biocannons. The Blood Angels' heroic defense, angels falling as hive tyrants orchestrated slaughter. These victories, Pyrrhic and blood-soaked, become hollow, mere delays before the main hive devours all. This creates an inestimable trap. A full Tyrannid invasion would end the setting, Terra's spires reduced to skeletal husks, the Emperor's corpse fed to Norn queens, Chaos gods starved of mortal souls. Games Workshop cannot allow this. The tabletop thrives on balanced campaigns, like Arctarius's Orc Tyrannid Slaughterfest. Yet, downplaying the Scout Force trope now would betray their terror, making them a paper threat. Fans whisper on datanets. Is the main fleet a psychic bluff, the hive mind projecting despair to break prey? Or do Tyranids flee something worse, a hyper-predator from another galaxy, as old White Dwarf tomes hinted? Tactical inconsistencies deepen the wound. Novels show hive ships felled by reactor overloads, kamikaze tactics detonating Imperial vessels amid synaptic cores. If so, why not deploy drone fleets en masse? Tyranids adapt mid-battle, evolving chitin against laser fire, psychic dampeners against Eldar farseers. Yet victories like Ikar 4, where Inquisitor Cryptman virus-bombed worlds to starve the swarm, suggest vulnerabilities that clash with their unstoppable aura. One moment, a swarm lord bisects a dreadnought. The next moment, guardsmen hold lines with bayonets. This yo-yo undermines immersion. Why celebrate Armageddon's defense if it's just an appetizer? A low, guttural hum, like a bioship's digestion chambers. To mend this without fracture, consider engineered limits. Biomass dependency. Introduce a consumption cap, where overfeeding spawns genetic bloat, mutations forcing hives to cannibalize, as seen in Splinter Fleet Hydra. Psychic reliance. The shadow and the warp disrupts enemy psychers, but amplify its backlash. Prolonged exposure frays the hive mind, causing synaptic collapse, like Orc's Wa energy overloading nodes in Octarius. Factional schisms. Extreme evolution births rogue hives, a tendril exposed to Necron null fields, rejecting the overmind, sparking inter-Tyrannid wars, gaunts tearing gaunts in acid-soaked frenzies. Or alliances. Necrons, seeking biovessels for biotransference, deploy pariah pylons to sever synaptic links, turning swarms feral. Tyranids gain no biomass from undying metal, tilting battles. Imagine Gilliman unleashing Dark Age viruses, culling tendrils, but awakening worst horrors. These tweaks keep Tyranids apex predators, not auto-win apocalypses. What say you, Pilgrim? Does this swarm shadow chill your soul, or has its endless tease grown stale? The metallic clank of Necron scarabs, layered with the hum of a Gauss flare.
The Necrons rise like skeletal specters, their curse unbroken across eons. Once the Necron tier, flesh-bound and mortal, they sold their souls to the Satan star gods, becoming immortal machines of living metal. Their Gauss flares strip atoms layer by layer. Monoliths phase through reality to unleash particle whips that vaporize tank columns, and the celestial orrery, locked in Zarek's hidden vault, extinguishes stars with a gesture, dooming systems to frozen death. From the Silent King's exile return to unify fractured dynasties, to Trizon the Infinite hoarding history in Solemnus's galleries, Necrons wield supremacy that mocks lesser races. Yet this godlike power is their narrative curse. How can beings unbound by flesh's frailties not rule the galaxy as eternal pharaohs? The 5th edition retcon birthed this conundrum, elevating Necrons from Satan slaves, mindless harvesters in 3rd edition's Lovecraftian dread, to a tragedy of pride and betrayal. They shattered their star gods into shards, wielding them as weapons, but gained apocalyptic tech. Chronometrons rewinding battles, reanimation protocols rebuilding warriors mid-assault, dimensional Nexide teleporting legions instantly. Billions slumber in tomb worlds, but even partial awakenings like Imhotep's Sautech dynasty crushing imperial fleets should dominate. Why then do they falter? Novels like Severed show salamanders disabling cryptech engines, or space marines outwitting overlords with plucky heroics. This reeks of tabletop balance. Necrons must be playable, not insta-wins, leading to contrived weaknesses, tombs damaged by tectonics, or phase-out protocols whisking armies away before victory. Internal strife offers partial salve. Dynasties like Mefrit feud with Nihilak, overlords succumb to destroyer cult's nihilism, or the Flayer virus twists warriors into cannibalistic horrors. Zarek commands respect, not obedience. Varons like Zandrek play deluded chivalry, treating foes as honorable. Yet these feel like excuses. Necrons lack supply lines or morale breaks. Scarabs rebuild from scrap. Teleportation deploys instantly. Psychic aversion is key. The warp corrodes their essence, as in Infinite and Divine, where Trazyn evades chaos-tainted zones. The Great Rift could amplify this, forcing focus on pylon networks, Blackstone obelisks nullifying the Imperium, draining resources. To resolve without dilution, entropy's toll. Eons erode enrams, turning pharaons mad, as in the twice-dead king. Limit uber weapons. The orrery's star deletion risks paradoxes, erasing legions. Deepen schisms. A civil war erupts. Zarek's biotransference quest clashing with purists embracing undeath. External counters. Tyranid's shadow disrupts reanimation, or Eldar revive anti-warp pacts, as in Rise of the Inari. Picture dynasties clashing with hive fleets over biomass worlds. Nulltech versus synaptic overloads in cataclysmic voids. Necrons remain tragic overlords, fractured by hubris. Do these undying enigmas awe you, or do their stalled conquests ring hollow? The Primarchs return. The Primarchs, demigods of the Emperor's gene alchemy, once led the Great Crusade's stellar conquests. Lyons L. Johnson's tactical genius, Gilliman's logistical mastery, Russ's feral fury. Scattered by chaos, they rose as legends, only to fall in the heresy's fires. Ferrus Manus beheaded on Istvan. Sanguinius slain defending the Emperor. For 10,000 years, they were myths, their absence fueling the Imperium's decay. Gilliman's 8th edition resurrection, revived by Yvrane's sorcery and Cowl's tech, heralded hope. the avenging sun reclaiming Ultramar, launching the Indomitus crusade against Abaddon's hordes. The lions return in Son of the Forest, awakening from Caliban's rock to battle demons amplified this. 2 loyal sons against the dark. Yet this opens floodgates. Why not Russ from the warp, Vulcan's perpetual rebirth or Korax's shadow form? Than demands surge, but resurrections cheapen stakes. Death becomes reversible, echoing comic book tropes. Gilliman's return was seismic, upending the ecclesiastic's theocracy with rational reforms. But the Lions feels iterative, his fallen hunts adding intrigue but risking routine. If Khan emerges from the webway or Dorn from stasis, it's fan service over weight. Sanguinius's martyrdom, inspiring the Blood Angel's black rage, loses potency if undone.
Emperor's Decree. Gilliman's throne audience reveals only select Primarchs were marked for return, others fated as guardians. Irreversible ends, Dorn's skeletal hand proves demise, Russ lost in the eye. Internal drama, Gilliman and Lyon's reunion sparks ideological clash, pragmatism versus absolutism, fueling civil tensions without more revivals. Their heresy review exposes Primarch's flaws as deliberate, tools, not sons, adding tragedy. This keeps returns pivotal, not predictable. What if your demigod stirred, boon or curse? The Imperium versus Chaos. The Imperium and Chaos are 40k's beating heart, an eternal waltz of faith against corruption. The Imperium, a trillion souls bound by dogma, battles Khorne's berserkers, Tzeentch's sorcerers, Nurgle's plague hordes, Slaaneish's tempters. From the Eye of Terror's incursions to Abaddon's 13 Black Crusades, this fuels epics like Cadia's fall, where the planet killer birthed the Great Rift. Neither triumphs. Chaos corrupts worlds like Sabbat, but purges reclaim them. The rift isolates Nihilus in demon-haunted night, but Gilliman's crusade pushes back. This stalemate ensures war, but stifles evolution. Victory ends the IP. Chaos's subversion, mutating guardsmen, corrupting governors, promises change, yet resets to status quo. Solutions: Imperium strife, Gilliman's reforms clashing with inquisitorial zeal, chaos infiltrating as cults. Elevate threats. Post-rift, Tyranids or Necrons dominate, forcing truces. Corruption focus. Novels like The Gate of Bones explore human falls, adding depth. A segmentum's fall reinvigorates stakes. This evolves the core without breaking it. The God of Humanity. The Emperor, humanity's God, is 40k's ultimate paradox, a psyker of unmatched power riddled with mortal follies. He unified Terra, launched the crusade, yet bungled the heresy through secrecy. He knew Chaos's perils, but withheld warnings. Scattered Primarchs landed on worlds amplifying flaws. Angron's rage-fueled Nuceria, Lorgar's faith-twisted Colchis. Withdrawing to the webway let Horus's corruption fester. Malcardor's hints suggest a planned civil war to cull weaknesses. These contradictions, omniscient or arrogant, fuel debate. Solutions: affirm limited foresight, miscalculations genuine, reveal contingencies in lost artifacts, expose arrogance via perpetual critiques. Primarch dialogues dissect intent, revealing tools over kin. Clarity tempers mystery, strengthening cohesion.
These wounds, though thorns in the Emperor's side, fuel our passion. Share your vexations, pilgrims, and may the Omnissiah guide our tales. In the grimdark, endure. In the shadowed annals of the Imperium, no figure looms larger than the Emperor of mankind, the god of humanity, the architect of the Great Crusade. He is the light that pierced Terra's barbaric dark, the psyker whose will forged a galaxy-spanning empire from the ashes of old night. Yet beneath his divine mantle lies a wound deeper than any cut by Xenos claw or Daemon blade, the hubris that birthed the Horus heresy, the cataclysm that shattered his dream and left humanity to rot in a millennium of decay. I, Malakar Voss, archivist of the Ordo Chronicus, have scoured redacted data slates, interrogated heretics in the Inquisition's deepest cells, and pieced together fragments of truth from the Perpetual's whispered confessions. The Emperor's arrogance, his belief that he alone could master fate, sowed the seeds of our doom. Let us delve into the shadows of his past to uncover how his pride sculpted the galaxy's greatest tragedy. The Emperor's origins are shrouded in myth, a tapestry of half-truths woven by those who worshipped him and those who cursed his name. Born in the misty dawns of old Earth, perhaps in the cradle of ancient Anatolia, he was no mere man, but a Perpetua, a being of near immortal vitality, gifted with psychic might that could reshape reality itself. For millennia he walked among humanity, a silent shepherd guiding tribes from savagery to civilization. He was the warlord who united Terra's techno-barbarians, the scientist who unlocked the secrets of the gene seed, the visionary who dreamed of a star-spanning Imperium free from the warp's taint. Yet even in these early days, the seeds of hubris took root. His perpetuals, his kin, beings like Erda and Malkador, saw in him a man who believed himself above all others, a solitary titan who deemed his vision singular and infallible. In the age of strife, as old night smothered humanity's light, the Emperor's ambition crystallized. The galaxy was a graveyard of fallen empires, the warp a roiling sea of demons feeding on mankind's despair. He alone, he believed, could forge a path to salvation. His first act of hubris was the creation of the Trademarks, 20 demigods crafted in subterranean gene forges beneath the Himalayan peaks. Each was a masterpiece of genetic alchemy, infused with fragments of his own soul and warp-born power. But here the flaw emerged. He designed them not as sons, but as tools, each with deliberate strengths and fatal weaknesses. Angron's rage, a furnace to fuel conquest, was left unchecked. Lorgar's yearning for faith, a spark to inspire legions, was ignored. Kurz's paranoia, a blade to cow enemies, was allowed to fester. Why? The Emperor, in his arrogance, believed he could control these flaws, that his psychic dominion would bind them to his will. Erda, his confidant in gene right, warned him, "They are not machines, anathema. They feel, they dream, they break." He dismissed her, casting her out, convinced his intellect surpassed her caution. The scattering of the Trademarks was the first crack in his grand design, a wound inflicted by chaos's machinations, or so the lore claims. The ruinous powers, sensing the Emperor's threat, tore open the warp and flung his sons across the stars.
Yet whispers in forbidden texts suggest a darker truth. Did he allow it? Malcador, his closest ally, hinted in the Siege of Terra that the scattering was foreseen, a calculated risk to temper the Primarchs in the crucible of alien worlds. If true, this was hubris incarnate, a gamble that the galaxy's chaos would forge his tools into perfect weapons, not fracture them into ripples. Each landed on a world that amplified their flaws. Angron on Nuceria, enslaved to gladiatorial bloodlust, his butcher's nails driving him to madness. Lorgar on Colchis, steeped in fanaticism that turned to worship of darker gods. Mortarion on Barbarus, poisoned by betrayal and resentment. The Emperor retrieved them, one by one, with fleets of gilded warships, but never addressed these wounds. He saw their pain, their doubts, and deemed them irrelevant. His plan was too grand for such mortal frailties. The Great Crusade was the zenith of his vision, a galactic conquest to unite humanity under one banner, free from religion and superstition. 200 years of relentless expansion saw stars reclaimed, Xenos purged, and worlds bent to the imperial truth. The Primarchs led their legions, Guliman's disciplined ultramarines, Horus's charismatic lunar wolves, Sanguinius's angelic blood angels, carving a path through the void. Yet the Emperor's hubris grew. He withheld the truth of the warp from his sons, fearing their corruption but underestimating their curiosity. Lorgar, chastised for worshipping him as a god, sought answers in the shadows. Magnus, the Crimson King, delved too deep into the warp's mysteries, believing his intellect matched his father's. His secrecy was not caution, but arrogance. He believed he alone could navigate chaos's perils, that his sons needed only his commands, not his trust. The greatest act of hubris came at the Crusade's peak. As the galaxy knelt, the Emperor withdrew to Terra, leaving Horus, the War Master, to lead in his stead. Beneath the Imperial Palace, he toiled on the Webway project, a secret endeavor to create a human-controlled warp network, severing reliance on the Imperium. This was his dream's capstone, a galaxy safe from daemons, ruled by reason. But in his absence, the seeds of betrayal sprouted. Horus, burdened by leadership and whispered to by Erebus's lies, fell to chaos on Davin's moon. The Emperor's failure to confide in his War Master, to warn him of the ruinous prowess, left Horus vulnerable. Why? The Perpetuals, Olanius Person, John Grammaticus, whispered of his arrogance. He believed his sons too weak to face the truth, that only he could bear the warp secrets. Malcadar's confession to a dying confidant during the Siege of Terra chills the blood. He knew some would fall. He planned for it. The heresy was to burn away the weak, to forge the strong. If true, the Emperor's hubris was monstrous, a deliberate sacrifice of half his sons, his empire, to sculpt a perfect future. The Horus heresy was the fruit of this arrogance, a galactic civil war that tore the Imperium asunder. Brother fought brother. Fulgrim's betrayal on Istvan, Ferris's head rolling at Angron's feet, Sanguinius broken before Horus on Terra's battlements. The Emperor faced his fallen son in the final duel aboard the vengeful Spirit, his psychic might clashing with Horus's chaos-fueled power. He struck Horus down, but at a cost. Mortally wounded, he was interred on the golden throne, a living corpse sustaining the Astronomicon. The Imperium stagnated, its dream of enlightenment replaced by a theocracy worshipping the very god he sought to banish. His hubris left a galaxy of faith and fire, where his son's flaws, once tools, became the Imperium's chains. Yet the Emperor's hubris echoes into M41. Guleimon's return, revived by Eldar sorcery and Mechanicus tech, revealed a man shaken by his father's silence. His throne room audience left him pale, burdened by truths unspoken. The lion, awakening from Caliban's slumber, carries the weight of his father's secrecy, his ego clashing with Guleimon's pragmatism. The perpetuals, scattered or dead, curse his name. Erda, vanished in the warp, called him a tyrant who saw humanity as clay, not kin. His arrogance, believing he alone could outwit chaos, control demigods, and master the warp, left a fractured legacy. Was he omniscient, his failures calculated gambits, or was he a man, powerful but flawed, undone by overreach? The law offers no clarity, only contradiction, a god who failed, a man who dared too much. To mend this wound, affirm his limits. The Emperor saw futures, but not all. His mistakes, like leaving Horus unchecked, were miscalculations, not designs. Unearthed contingencies, lost vaults on Terra, uncovered by inquisitors like Eisenhorn, reveal plans for a post-heresy Imperium thwarted by betrayal. Let Guleinon and the Lion dissect their father's intent in a tense confrontation, realizing they were tools, not sons, their flaws deliberate to serve his vision. Emphasize hubris, flashbacks in Black Library novels perhaps, in the Beckwin trilogy, show perpetuals challenging his arrogance, their disdain proving he was no god, but a man who overestimated his grasp. This clarity grounds the Emperor, preserving his mythic stature while resolving contradictions. Does his hubris haunting, pilgrim? Or do you see a mastermind's gambit in his fall? These wounds, tyrannids, necrons, primarchs, chaos, and the Emperor's hubris are thorns in the Imperium's flesh, yet they fuel our passion for this grim-dark saga. The Emperor's arrogance, a beacon and a curse, shaped a galaxy of broken dreams.